Ahmed Aziz's Epic Year, chapters 14 and 15. Chapter 14. Ari, Jessica, Jack, and I were meeting in the cafeteria before school to work on our project. I had spent more time coming up with ways to get out of being the moderator than I had spent preparing for it. Classic me. In fact, despite the best of intentions, I hadn't finished the book. Old habits die hard. Mom was driving me to school, and it occurred to me that I was skipping the pressure of being on the bus with Jack only to get to school early to be with Jack. Ridiculous. Sarah was curled up next to Dad on the couch, her head on his lap. He smiled and waved. Today was a big day. We'd find out if all those pills he had been taking had worked. I ran up to my room and put Terabithia in my backpack. Like a good luck charm, I patted my bag to feel better. Well, this is nice, Mom said. I like that you're taking class seriously and making an effort. I've heard Janet is a great teacher. Maybe Mom wouldn't be quite as impressed if she realized my motivation was self preservation. Oh, I promised our neighbor I'd take her son to school as well. You must have met him on the bus. She said he's in your class. My hand froze, seatbelt in hand, midway across my chest. I can't remember. But I think his name is John or Zach, one of those one-syllable names. Jack. That's it, Jack. Do you know him? Do I know him? Ugh, Mom, there's no way we're taking Jack to school. Of course I knew him. He's the worst, like the absolute worst. Only a few weeks into school, and I knew him a little too well. We absolutely can't take him. Mom stopped the car to look at me. What do you mean? How could I explain Jack to my mom? How I felt uncomfortable around him, that I went out of my way to avoid him, that he was everything I hated about being in Minnesota. Well, he tripped me on the bus on the first day of school, Mom. Okay. And he made me volunteer to be moderator in Mrs. Garter's class. Okay. And he's just not nice. Okay. When I said it like that all in a row, I knew it didn't sound bad. But if I used the word bully, Mom would get involved. I didn't need that. She turned the volume down on the radio. You don't have to be best friends with him. His mom came over and asked if I could help out, and I said yes. So we're taking him. But Mom, listen, I'm not questioning what you said about him. But I also know his mom's a single parent and she travels all the time. He's on his own a lot. That can't be easy. Not for Jack and not for his mom. So if we can help by taking him to school early, we help. I started to open the door. Then let me out. You take Precious Jack, and I'll take the bus, or ask Dad to drop me. Mom gave me that look that I didn't dare mess with. Ahmed Aziz, you close that door this minute. You know your father isn't feeling strong enough to drive you, which is why I stayed late. If all of us are moving things around to take you to school early, you are going. And you are going to deal with being in the car for 10 minutes with a kid you don't like. I turned the volume back up so I didn't have to listen to her, but I also closed my door. Jack was already waiting in his driveway for us, so I didn't have to go ring the doorbell for him. How considerate. Good morning, Jack. Good morning, Mrs. Aziz. He climbed into the back. I hear your mom is in Zimbabwe this week. How exciting. Seems like she goes to some unusual places. He buckled his seatbelt. How responsible. She was in Zimbabwe a few days ago, but I saw on her Instagram this morning that she is in Sudan. She moves around a lot. Mom reversed out of his driveway, looking at Jack in the rearview mirror and me out of the corner of her eye. She said she's a photojournalist, so much more exciting than being an accountant like me. She laughed. But you must miss her. I'm used to it. Someone comes to spend the night, but usually I get to watch as much TV as I want. Even with dinner, it's not so bad. But the way Jack said it, something about the tone in his voice, made it sound bad. I shifted in my seat and fiddled with my vent. I had managed not to say a word. Ahmed's dream come true, Mom said. Mom was super strict about not turning on the TV at mealtime and all of us sitting down together for dinner, no matter how much we begged. Sarah bugged me. Dad had endless questions about my day. Mom forced us to have family dinner time together. But I can't imagine them not being there. She dropped us off at the back entrance where a few other suckers were getting head starts on their day. Remember, we'll be at the doctor's and won't be home when you get back. Don't worry, though. I'll be back in time to make dinner. Yay, Mom's dinner. The abuses of this day seemed endless. Chapter 15. Jack and I walking in together, never in my dreams. Maybe in a nightmare. My mom's dinners are the worst. I'd much rather watch TV and eat a sandwich. Shut up, Ahmed. You don't know a thing about me. Ari and Jessica were seated, notebooks out and ready to go, when we walked in. I looked at the clock. We were only 3 minutes late. I squeezed my chair between Jessica and Ari to avoid Jack, my knee pressed against the metal of Ari's wheelchair. Jack tapped something into his phone. Since Ahmed is moderator, he can take notes. He flickered his eyes from his screen to me, the pause giving me time to argue. I didn't oblige. How do you guys want to do this? Ari asked. It'd be great if we got enough ideas for the group discussion as well as our own essays. I wish she'd tell us which team presents first. I looked at our feet in that tight circle, almost touching, my tie-dye shoes in contrast to the whites and blues of the others. She knows we'd only work on the one we're in charge of presenting, Jessica said. This way we're forced to prepare for all three. We could start by sharing our notes, Jack said. Jack said? Jack had read the work, made notes, was contributing to the discussion? I wasn't expecting that. Jack pointed the sharp end of his pencil at me, stabbing the air. Ahmed should start. Now that I expected. The cafeteria felt different this time of day. No students, no noise, no lunch line. Only the smell was the same. The smell of the cafeteria was as familiar as the smell of a gym locker. On the plus side, if I closed my eyes, I could pretend I was back in Hawaii. Sure, I kind of liked the part about Stanley being away from his home and family. I liked seeing him adjust as the new kid. That really interested me. That sounded like a least amount of work sort of analysis. Really, did it? Jessica said sarcastically, rolling her eyes. Come on, Ahmed, we aren't in 3rd grade. We've got to come up with something better than that. She turned the pages of her notebook until she found what she was looking for. Stanley's family feels stuck because of a curse. That's fate. They feel nothing they do will work until the curse is broken. They have no free will. She ran her finger under a line of her notes. Fate versus free will. That could be our discussion. Other groups from Mrs. Garter's class trickled in. Getting kids to wake up early must be part of what made her a legend. I like that idea, Ari said. We could talk about which characters believed in the curse and which didn't, and how it made a difference in their lives. He rolled his wheelchair back enough to release my knee. A chip left behind from yesterday's lunch crunched. Personally, Jessica said, I really liked it. When Stanley used sarcasm as a defense mechanism, like when Mr. Pendanski asked Stanley whose fault it was that he was sent to camp, and he answered that it was the fault of his no-good, dirty, rotten, pig-stealing great-great-grandfather. That was funny. It reminded me of how Jessica responded to Jack's comment about her acne. Jack tapped something into his phone, not looking up. Whatever, he said. Everyone likes to have someone to blame for things they've done. I think Stanley's family actually liked the curse. It allowed them to blame someone else for their miserable existence. Ahmed, Ari said, resting his finger on my notebook. You'd better start writing all this down so you know what to talk about in class. Being near Jack made me nervous. Things that came naturally to me suddenly felt difficult. Things like ducking out of schoolwork, keeping a low profile, speaking in full sentences. I was the king of passing the buck and wasn't ready to be dethroned. Jessica, wouldn't you rather be moderator? No thanks, she said. I get way too worked up. You don't want me up there. She turned her attention back to Jack. If you don't like what I had to say, Jack, what's your brilliant idea? His phone buzzed, and he lifted it from his lap to look. I think your adoring fans can wait until we finish, Jack, Jessica said. I raised my eyebrows but didn't dare ask. Adoring fans? Jack is famous for having the most friends and followers on Connect, Ari said. Connect? Like the homework app Mrs. Gardner made us download? Yeah, but it's also a school social media site. It's the school's weak way of trying to keep us safe online, Jessica explained. Ari laughed. It's got to be a full-time job keeping up with all those fans. Jack ignored him. We could talk about things being fair versus unfair. Almost everything that happened to Stanley and Zero was unfair. Maybe we could talk about that. Well, boo-hoo, Jack, Jessica replied. Cry me a river. Isn't calling something unfair another way of putting blame on something besides yourself? Saying it's unfair is the same as saying it's a curse. Either way, you're not taking responsibility for your actions. You're letting other things control you. I scribbled notes in my book, trying to look busy. Ari, what about you? Have anything you want to add? Yeah, so my ideas weren't quite as complicated as what you guys bring up. I wanted to talk about friendship in the book. I liked how Stanley and Zero became friends, and it made Stanley stronger and even saved their lives in the end. Jessica leaned back in her chair and let out a long, "Oh, geez." She put her head in her hands and let her hair fall to the front, in case we hadn't completely grasped her utter exasperation. Hey, I kind of like that, Ari. How did it save their lives? I wasn't going to let Jessica bulldoze everyone's ideas because that's the kind of thing a good moderator would do, I think. Wait, Jessica sat up straight. You haven't read the book? All three of them stared at me. Man, our grades really depend on this. Plus, I really, really want to win that contest and get that trophy. Like, really. The others nodded in agreement. We all do. Why is that tiny trophy such a big deal? I asked, not pausing for an answer. Maybe you need to get over it. No one is getting over it, Jessica said. You'd better get with it instead. I'm not